All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with the conference. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Dan Lima. I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Educator in Belmont County. Part of the Pawpaw team on the extension side. Up here with me is Matesich from the North American Pawpaw Growers Association. This is several times that Ohio State has collaborated with North American Pawpaw Growers to put in an educational conference. So thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoy breakfast, trade show. Bathrooms are just right outside these doors, men on the right, women on the left. We're going to serve lunch here as well. We'll let you know when that's ready. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass it over to Matesich to do some welcoming statements for everyone. And we'll go ahead and get started with the first speaker in a little bit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm glad to see a lot of nice faces here and some old ones too. And what we have going on here, there was a lot of questions. Is it for bigger industry or the individual? Well, me as a medium grower of different fruit trees and developer and the crossbreeding of other fruit, it's for everyone. I'd like to put a recognition that we were lucky to have Neil Peterson. Would you please stand for a minute? Thank you very much, Neil, for attending this conference.
Knees and weak muscles, it's not like it used to be. So this morning, fellas, and this is my allergies, but people can assume it's COVID infection. All over your roof.
We have very many vendors here, and I take time to talk to each and every one of them. Some of those vendors special to me because of the work I do, that I brought them along. And one of the major announcements I want to, is from Kentucky State University. I had a meeting with Kurt Pawpaw. September 2025 will be the international conference. So if there's anybody that wants to help North American Pawpaw growers, reach out to me and to make it smooth. We'll be bringing people in from Romania and different parts of our country and outside the country. Well, Valerie?
Hey, good morning. Welcome again. I'm Valerie Libbey with the North American Pawpaw Growers Association, and I am thrilled to introduce our first speaker for today, Sara Bir. She is an author and chef from Marietta, Ohio. She actually spent many years working in the Bay Area and mingled with famous people like Martha Stewart and wrote in very prestigious publications. And she's really become specialized in pawpaws. And if you don't have her cookbook, I can tell you need a copy today. So be sure you stop by her table and pick that up. And so she is going to be sharing her tips and tricks and sharing secrets of cooking with pawpaws. So please give a warm welcome to Sara. Good morning. Thank you, Valerie.
I have to just take a moment and collect myself because you're all pawpaw people, and as pawpaw people, you understand what it's like to want to talk about pawpaws. And everybody's kind of like, yeah. And then occasionally you'll find somebody and that's all they want to do is talk about pawpaws with you. Well, we're all those people. So when we all get together, it's just wonderful for me because you guys are the best people. We're all just huge nerds and into cool stuff. And I can't wait to meet a lot of you and get to know some of you better. Before I get going too, I should let you know that I just finished 6 weeks of radiation and I had COVID and I'm fine, but I have a fuzzy brain still, and occasionally my mind is reaching for a word and it just can't get it. So if that happens while I'm up here, we're just gonna work through it together, okay? You can just shout out the word you think I'm trying to say. Maybe we can make it into a game. So yes, I wrote a Pawpaw cookbook, and that was like, I think 2015 is when I did the first small version of this. This book is also very small. You know why? I think there's only like 10 things to make out of Pawpaws, and then everything else is just an iteration. So I don't want to undersell Pawpaws. Maybe you think there are 100 things you can do. There's not a wrong way to go about it, but I think there are ways that flatter the pawpaw more. And you know, it's a very special fruit. We want to show it to its best advantage. So that is why I decided to start making and collecting pawpaw recipes. I grew up in Ohio, and there were pawpaw trees in the backyard of my childhood home, but I'd never encountered a fruit until I had lived many different places and moved back. And once I tasted pawpaws, I was just smitten immediately, and I was having a lot of fun trying to figure out recipes that highlighted it to its greatest advantage. Normally, when I talk to groups, I'm the pawpaw, I wouldn't say expert, but I'm the knowledgeable pawpaw person, and the group is, they're pawpaw enthusiasts. So I'm the person with the larger amount of knowledge, and today, I feel like you guys are the pawpaw experts and I'm the enthusiast. I'm always enthusiastic. That's gonna happen. So my presentation today is gonna be a little different than what I normally do. You'll notice I don't have food here, for instance. As a chef, when I do presentations, I don't have a slideshow. My show is the food, and I didn't bother doing that today. It just makes it easier for me. So I'm sorry that I'm not gonna do the little song and dance, because I think that makes it easy for me to have the best presentation. But it's also my little AV show, right? So I only have 4 cups of pawpaw in my freezer right now. I just didn't know what to do with it. It's kind of funny because you know how there's that portal that happens around like August, at least if you're in this area, when the pawpaw things start happening and you kind of like re-enter the pawpaw mindset and everything just kind of flows. In May, it's a little, like I have to kind of struggle to get myself back there. So I was trying to get myself back in the pawpaw mindset. And I didn't even open up one of my jars of stuff, but I will later. So I will let you know if you would like to actually taste some pawpaw just to really get in the spirit, because it is very hard to come by at the moment, right? Which is nobody's fault. It's just why pawpaw is special. It only comes out at certain times. Just get a plastic spoon, and I will have some stuff you can taste, because I did bring some stuff. All right, so if you want to put pawpaw in a Danish, which someone here had suggested, pawpaw Danish, that would be excellent, right? Just dump it on a Danish or something. So anyhow, why a pawpaw cookbook? Like I said, pawpaws they're a little tricky to work with. I'm really curious, how many of you actually, outside of eating pawpaw, how many of you prepare food with it? There's not a right or wrong answer. Yeah, it's like 30%-ish. I think that's totally fine because it's a lot of work. You know, we gotta like, if you're just eating a pawpaw, it's pretty simple. You smoosh it open and put it on your yogurt or just like eat it. But if you want to cook with it, you have to pulp the pawpaw, and that's a little tricky. And then you have to figure out how you want to be storing the pawpaw, how much you're going to pulp at a time. You got your freezer full of pawpaw, all those considerations. And so instead of just talking about how to do those, I was thinking about why and what would benefit any of you. So how many of you grow pawpaws to sell? Okay. Do any of you ever feel challenged communicating to people who are buying pawpaws what to do with them, or how to store them, or how to process them? Because there's a big education component. Just handing the pawpaw over is kind of fun, but it's only like half of the equation. So what I would like to do is think about ways, and we can all kind of brainstorm together, how to make that easier. When people ask me how they can taste pawpaw, recently, to my understanding, there was a story in the Atlantic about pawpaw. Like a story about pawpaws existing comes up every now and then in the press, which is, I mean, I wrote one of those, they're great, we've got to get the word out. But it was maybe, let's see, it's March. It came out maybe in March. I was like, this is the weirdest time for a story about pawpaws to come out, because then people will hear about it and be like, well, where can I taste this thing? Where can I get one? And right now it's like, good luck. Even if you go to a pawpaw festival, sometimes just getting your hands on pawpaws is a little bit tricky. So I think if you can figure out a way to lock a pawpaw into something that is either shelf-stable or frozen, can be a good approach if you're trying to tell people stuff that they can do with their pawpaw outside of just putting it on their yogurt, which is actually my favorite way to have pawpaws anyway. So I have a couple different approaches for keeping that pawpaw flavor really bright and fresh, if you're even going to bother cooking with it. Because, so maybe some of you have noticed that when you heat, many, many fruits, the flavor, it just becomes a little sad echo of itself. And sometimes with pawpaw, depending on, I usually just forage for mine, although it's never just, is it? It's, it's a lot of work. I do it because I love the work, and I'm bad at growing things. It's another reason why it's great I'm here. I have a lot to learn. I have 2 pawpaw trees now, and they're about as tall as this corn plant. I'm so excited. But I go out to the woods to get mine, and when you have those mongrel pawpaws, you never really know what the flavor is going to be. But I've noticed when you're cooking with mongrel pawpaws, they tend to have a little bit more funk, right? That's why you guys work hard to breed beautiful pawpaws that have the characteristics that are going to make them broadly appealing. But if you have pawpaws that are a little bit funkier, especially when you're cooking with them, the part about them that can be polarizing, that part seems to move to the forefront, to me. This is not a dig, but I have noticed that a lot of weird fruit people, and I'm one of them, we tend not to be super tasters all the time. Because when you're a super taster, every single nuance of something, it's like too much to process, and pawpaw is so much to process in your head. So I feel like we all have really adventurous palates, but still, when we want to use the pawpaw in a way that's going to make it just come alive. So when I am cooking using heat, right, if I'm doing anything that's going to be baking or simmering or whatever, I try to make the base of the thing and then add the pawpaw in later, either when it's tepid or even when it's totally cooled down. And that helps keep the flavor really, really zingy and alive. And it does justice to the pawpaw. The times that there are exceptions to that, I've noticed, is anytime you're using a ton of sugar, sugar really helps mask flavor, but it also helps raise the temperature at which the pawpaw keeps from, the flavor keeps from degrading, for any better sense, for any better word of that. And you know what, I'm gonna get my one video egg. I guess I could have brought a bunch of food that I pretended was made with pawpaw, but it wouldn't be. Just wouldn't be honest, would it? So here is a jar of pawpaw jam that I make. Now there are, every now and then you'll see jars of jam at specialty stores, and if I were selling this, actually if you want to buy this from me today, it's $10, okay? You guys know why. A lot of work goes into this jar of jam, and you want it to be delicious and excellent. So normally when you're cooking preserves, you have to cook them for a long time. The first time I ever made pawpaw preserves, I kept on adding and adding and adding spices and seasonings because I couldn't get it to taste right. Have you ever made a salad dressing and you ended up with like 5 quarts of dressing because you just couldn't get it right? You keep adding things to it. So that's what happened to these pawpaw preserves that I was making. I was just kind of like making them up as I went. And I did can them, and in the end, I mean, they weren't horrible, but they went best with liver pate. So that just tells you something. I do think pawpaw goes well with liver, though, in certain circumstances. So I was like, maybe simmering pawpaw for an hour is not the best thing to do. So when I make pawpaw preserves, I add pectin to them, and that makes it so they set very, very quickly. So this is actually not a difficult recipe to make. The hardest part about it is getting your pawpaw pulp ready. You can also cut it with other slightly more neutral fruit. So apples and pawpaw go well together. And if you want to stretch out the pawpaw flavor and also kind of stretch out your product, so to speak, that's a good thing to do. So anyway, this is one of my favorite recipes in the book. And I also like it because it's one of the few shelf-stable things you can make easily with pawpaw. I've tried like 12 times to make pawpaw vinegar. I know it can be done. I'm also not good at making vinegar. You know, some people can't be good at everything. I'm great for people who make vinegar because I'm going to buy your lovely vinegar. So someday I'll make pawpaw vinegar, but when I can, I'm going to be so happy because that would be another great shelf-stable way to make pawpaw. Doesn't like to be dehydrated. How many of you have dehydrated pawpaws before? Did it go well?
Like slime.
Like slime? Yeah, like dehydrating baby food or stuff is really tricky. I made pawpaw granola once, which is almost like dehydrating the pawpaw. And what happens is it gets so concentrated that the compound in it that can trigger nausea gets concentrated too. And that compound is variable. And like I said, I'm dealing with mongrel pawpaws, so sometimes it's a little bit higher in those. So I would not recommend dehydrating pawpaws for that very reason. Now, if there's somebody knows a workaround with that, that's super great. This is actually what I love about cooking with pawpaws because it's like a new frontier. All of the information we know is from us talking to each other, and maybe something that you heard. I don't know if there's like a verbal tradition of pawpaws going back and back and back years, or at least of cooking with them. When you go on the internet, it's mostly recipes for pawpaw bread. It's pretty easy. You take your favorite banana bread recipe and use pawpaw. Can't go wrong. Pawpaw pie. Actually, it's not my favorite way to make pawpaw. I don't feel like you get a lot of flavor. It's sort of like a baked custard pie or whatever. Those are, and ice cream. Can't go wrong with ice cream. But if you want to expand beyond either of those things, you kind of have to just tap into the knowledge. And that is what I love the most about, everything I love about pawpaws. I'm sorry, I say, what do I love the most about pawpaws? Another thing I love about pawpaws is it's such a grassroots thing. So whether it is through us gathering at places like this, or using social media, or sometimes even you just hear it through the grapevine. I can't think of another food item where you have such a multi-tiered spread of information and networking of people. Even if pawpaws go viral, I think they'll always be a really important component of that. So talking to other people about whether you're growing pawpaws or you're cooking with them like me, you have to be talking to other people to be gathering great ideas. So it is very possible that you can dehydrate pawpaws. It's just the information's not broadly out there. All right, I just ran into a little brain farty thing. So let's look in here and see some of the things. During this pause, I'm curious if any of you have any questions. Yes, hi there.
But, I wonder, do you ever try cooking with black pawpaws? Because all the old recipes in the Firefox books and You'll Given said, grab them quick in the woods before the possums and the insects tear them up. Set them in your kitchen, wait till they turn black. Then make pawpaw pie. And I asked people about that. Nobody does it because they look gross. But the flavor changes dramatically, and once the skin turns black on them. And if they're out of the woods, they're safe. So I'm still looking for information on that.
Well, black, I love that you call them black pawpaws, which makes sense because they are very, very dark at that point, right? I call those rusty pawpaws. There could be different names, so I don't think there's a consensus for a name. So yes, what to do with those really dark pawpaws, and I think those are maybe the most polarizing of all. I like them when they're a little fresher, but because I'm a person who gathers pawpaws, I certainly have my own share of them. So when I think some people just like eating them that way. Who here likes them really, really ripe and squishy and brown / black? Ooh, okay. Do you like to do anything with them when they're like that besides just eat them? Okay. I've used them to make a pawpaw butter, which is like this pawpaw jam, but this one's really light and lemony, so I add lemon juice to this, and then sometimes a little vanilla, because I like the specks. But when I feel like needs a little extra something, I add spices to it, and then it becomes pawpaw butter, because the rusty pawpaws are not my preference. But it is interesting that, like the Foxfire, which I don't know if are any of you familiar with those, it's a journal in West Virginia, I think, or it's of Appalachian traditions that may or may not still be around. But that you would read about it in there is interesting to me, because once again, it's kind of this underground thread of information that isn't part of our popular knowledge. I don't love those ones myself. But you like those, or you just heard about them?
They have a different flavor. They have a kind of a burnt sugar, caramelized flavor, and I've got some friends from Kentucky that like them that way. They pick them up in the woods that way. You definitely are going to have to share them with the ants when you do that. But,
Well, you get some extra protein.
yeah, and I've never heard of people getting nausea from the black ones. I wonder if they change chemically. Maybe they're better to cook with.
It might, or it might be, and this is just like me pulling information out of my butt, but maybe the type of person who enjoys that flavor has a really sturdy microbiome. Does anybody else have questions? Yes, hi.
A lot of recipes ask for pawpaw pulp. When I'm doing a Google search, where do you find them, or how do you make your own? Is there a hack for that? I'm asking about pawpaw pulp. A lot of recipes ask for that. You can't find that at a regular store. How do you make your own? Do you have a hack for that, or is it in your book, or do you know where to get it?
This is the best question. You are the exact best place in the world at this very moment to ask that question. So I hope other people come up and talk to you later, because they will have better answers than me. This is how I do it as a lady who brings home like 5 pounds of pawpaw at a time. I have a conical sieve, which I should have brought with me, but it looks like a little dummy hat, but inverted, and then it's got a stand, and there's a wooden pestle. So you put your stuff in there. You can use it for processing tomatoes or whatnot. So when I process my pawpaws, I usually do this outside because it's kind of messy. So I just like put down newspapers on a table outside, and I have ripe pawpaws, and I put them in a bowl of water, and then I almost crack them open like eggs with my hands, like this, and then I run my thumbs along the insides to separate the flesh from the skin, because the skin's not going to make you sick, but I don't know anybody who's like, you know what I really love? Pawpaw skin. It's not the best part of the pawpaw. So you want to separate the skin from the flesh, and then you want to loosen up the flesh from the seeds. So I just kind of stick my hand inside the pawpaw goop and squish, squish, squish a little bit, and then I go in there with the pestle, and I force out the pulp. That took like 100 times less time to describe than it's going to take to actually do it, because it's messy and it takes a while. And I like to get as much pulp off of the seeds as possible, which is why I have that whole table full of the empty seeds. I like squished everything off of them that I put. How many pawpaws you have kind of determines how precious you are with trying to get the pulp out. So then you have your pulp. And there are a couple places you can order it online in frozen form. Some people here might be those people, so hopefully they will talk to you. And then there are ways to do it faster when you have larger amounts and different equipment. I have heard something about
Food processor.
a food processor.
Yeah, if you go on YouTube, there's a couple of ladies that do it with the food processor. And it goes really fast.
Really?
I stood 6 hours last year. I stood 6 hours doing it all by hand.
So even like the seeds, like all the thing goes into the food processor?
She has a special little paddle, an attachment to her food processor that it doesn't mess up the seeds. She just whips it around in a few seconds. The seeds are separate from the pulp.
Awesome. Okay, so to my understanding, you don't want to disrupt the seeds because that can make you not feel good later on.
That food processor, the blade in it is actually a dough blade.
It's the dough blade. It's a plastic
So
one.
it's the plastic and it has the wings on the bottom and the wings on the top, so it doesn't break the seeds.
Okay, okay, cool. This is why YouTube is more for good than for bad, because of things like this. It's the Pawpaw Underground coming forward. How are we doing on time?
We got time for one more.
All right, just, yeah, like stop me when it's time. So who's got the best question? Hi.
When you're making jams, do you have to add acid or anything so that your food's safe? Like, what are the cottage food laws for that?
Okay, that is a good question if you're going to be selling them commercially. It depends on the state, to my understanding, because you can get the cottage food law. I only remember this because once my husband and I set up at a craft fair next to a lady. My husband makes art that takes hours to make, and then this lady had these jams, and she sold out of jams and nothing flat, and we sold like $25 worth of art, but she had a cottage food. This was in Ohio, so at the time you could get permits to be able to make things in your kitchen and sell them. So as long as you're following safe canning procedures, and I do talk about that in my book too. So the Pawpaw jam recipe I have is safe for canning. But also if you're using added pectin, to my understanding Pawpaws are low in pectin anyway, so you would want to add pectin. And the acid helps the pectin set, but it makes the pawpaw taste delicious as well. I think adding a little citrus really brings all the tropical flavors up to the front. When the pawpaws are a little older, sometimes I'll add acid in the form of apple cider vinegar because it has a little bit more of that like fall kind of vibe. But the high amount of sugar in canned items like this too is going to make them safe. So as long as they are canned correctly, been steriled, well, they've been sanitized, whatever, in clean jars, the whole bit, pretty easy to find that information online. Then a Pawpaw jam recipe like what you'll find in my book, the Pocket Pawpaw Cookbook, should be in pretty decent shape. But to be honest, I've never seen a pawpaw preserve or jam recipe online that wouldn't be safe for canning. Did that answer your question? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I'm going to be around all day long, right? Because we're done now.
Yeah, we would like to.
Cool. Just come talk to me later on. Obviously, I like to talk. So thank you so much. I can't wait to hear more today. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
I hope everybody enjoyed Sarah's talk here. A couple of recognitions I would like to, so people would know. Dr. Kirshner and wife Mabel, can you please stand up? His farmers will be pouring today. Well, the variety panel, you can come on up. We'll be having grafting demonstrations that you'll be able to work along with the grafters today. The grafters that I have, would you please stand up so everybody knows who you are? Cliff, Mark, Jim, and Logan. We have a place set up down at the farm that you'll be able to see that. We also have pollination will be going on down there. Any questions, you can single over here to Ann. Questions on the Pawpaws? We have Joe Sheeran here. The variety panel, you can proceed up here.